One of the things that I heard quite a lot after I published my book was that I've had this book idea or I've had this book written for years and I don't know what to do with it. And honestly, it broke my heart. The thought of spending so much time or putting in so much work and it just sitting there on a laptop or just, sitting on your heart, sitting in your mind, nagging at you. So today I want to walk you through the behind the scenes of how I published this book at the age of 24. So let's dive in. When you go beyond the surface and into the depths of who you truly are, you will rise. So let's set the stage of my 23-year-old self. I was 3 years out of college, working full time at the Canadian Red Cross. I was 2 years into building my speaking brand after a life changing, healing experience. And it was also the beginning of healing my relationship with my dad, which was this big key piece to unlocking and unleashing my voice, which led to the inspiration of this book. And so every speaking opportunity that I received, I made a point to share a new story. I wasn't going around telling the same story and perfecting it. I really chose to sit and write out a new story. And sure enough, one day the thought, I could turn all these stories into a book. And I had two intentions with this book. One, to be honest, was credibility for my speaking brand. I was seeing other people that were kind of on a very similar path, speaking, building their brands, and publishing books. And part of me was kind of like, well, why not me? And then the other piece was wanting to help people that might have felt anything remotely similar to what I had experienced. And for it to be a light, a hope, a piece of possibility. And knowing what I know now about human design, I know like my sacral, queen sacral, was leading the way on this the entire time. I was so lit up when that idea landed. There was just nothing that was getting in my way, and there was nothing stopping me. And so it was also as I started to map out these themes and these chapters, and even when the title came to me, all bets were off. Like it was go time and it was happening. I made a post on Facebook that I was writing a book, and that post led to me connecting with a publisher. And I was very clear on the date that I had in mind, and it worked out that I was meeting her. I had met her in like December or January, and I wanted my book to be published in September, which was my 24th birthday. And so met with my publisher, Jessica, and we essentially worked backwards. I had a deadline for my manuscript, which was actually around the second anniversary of my grandmother's passing. It was in May that my manuscript was due. And it wasn't until I was about halfway through that I was met with my like first point of resistance. I was feeling discouraged. I was thinking about these personal stories that I was going to be sharing and writing about in my book. There was one in particular, and I really thought about not going through it. I think part of me was sitting with a little bit of like some shame around a personal story that I was sharing, centered around how me and my now husband had gotten together. And so I had this thought of like, this is really like deep and this is really personal. Like, I don't know if I could do this. And I talked about it with my now husband, and he asked me this one question that grounded me immediately, instantly. And he said, well, why did you want to do this in the first place? And that took me out of thinking about what will people think to who is this book going to help? And I never questioned it again. And that's why knowing your intention is everything. Having that intention is everything when you go into something like writing a book. So let's dive into a little bit more behind the scenes of writing this book. So, what I did was I started with writing down all the stories that I felt really called to share. Everything that I could share, like everything, all the little, like even mundane, probably stories. And then I zoomed out and I started to look for themes that would connect certain stories. And by doing that, it gave me forgiveness, self awareness, self love, gratitude, and celebration. These became the five pillars, the five sections of my book, the five keys to living a happier life, aka the key to happiness. So that was the one thing, was having this outline. It gave me this direction of where I was going, helped me understand what stories needed to be included, what stories were not meant to be included, and where to have my focus. And then the second thing, as I mentioned, I had my publisher who really took care of everything afterwards: editing, book design, printing the book. That support was everything. That support, plus meeting so many women after I published my book who were asking about how they could go about publishing their book and telling their story, is the very reason that I created and started the Studio Press, my self publishing agency. I never wanted to have anyone, like, I wanted to fulfill this piece around like getting rid of the how, to be honest, because it's usually the how is what stops us and paralyzes us. And I wanted to be that place for someone to come to be able to not even question the how. So, about a month before my 24th birthday, I was holding this book in my hands for the first time. I remember opening up the box. My publisher filmed this video of me, and I held my book in my hands for the first time. I gave my first copy to my mom, and it was such a special moment. It is one of the top moments for you as an author to experience, holding your book, something that you worked so hard on, in your hands for the first time. Writing and publishing my book was such a healing experience for me, and it truly was the place that I found my voice. And looking back, the turning point wasn't when I signed with a publisher or even when I held my book in my hands for the first time. It was that moment that I reconnected with my intention, when I was having that resistance, when I was having that doubt. Because that's what carried me through the doubt. That's what carried me through to publishing. And it's what anchored me when any fear crept in or any questioning came up. And that's what writing a book is all about. It's an act of intention. It's, declaring that your story matters. And that's enough for it to be seen and heard and shared. It's enough as is. So if you've been circling around this idea of writing your story, of sharing your story, and you haven't taken that step, ask yourself, what is my true intention behind sharing my story? And let that be your compass. And if you are ready to explore a way to be able to finally share your story, then I want to invite you into Collective Voices. Collective Voices is a co-author publishing experience. It's designed for women who are feeling that nudge to tell their story, but they don't want to get lost in the how. And so inside, you really get to focus on your words, your story, and the message that you want to share. And we take care of everything else: the editing, the book design, publishing, and supporting you with also marketing this book that is created alongside other incredible women. And together, a book ends up being created from it. And so you'll be, like I said, you'll be walking this journey alongside other incredible women that are also have this deep intention behind sharing their story. And along the way, you are going to be so held and so supported and so seen and so celebrated every single step of the way. I can promise you that. And it also might be the doorway into getting the momentum, having that momentum stirred up within you to something else. For a lot of the authors that have come inside Collective Voices, it's been going off and publishing their own book, but it's also been this activation to starting other projects. And so if this stirred something up inside of you, you can click the link in the show notes to learn all about Collective Voices and to apply, because we begin very soon, October 18th. And we have some spaces left for you. And as always, if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, follow, subscribe, and stay connected as we continue to go beyond the surface. And until next time, keep writing your way home.